Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And just like that, I am back with another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. Where does time go? We keep bringing the best women here, and y'all can see from the track record, I don't skip on the guests. I'm your fabulous host, Shanasia Washington, streaming in the beautiful city of Houston, Texas, and like no other, I am here with the heat. Have another amazing woman that comes to the stage and does the drill. She tells us her name, where she's streaming from, and she jumps right into her story. And without any further waiting time, here's my very amazing guest for today.
Hi, everybody. I am Melanie McMorrin, and I am streaming to you from a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. I consider myself a corporate creative, someone who has years of experience, diverse experience in corporate, from operations to program management, and most recently, marketing and communication, which has pretty much dominated my career. The last 10 years of my career, I spent in the nonprofit sector and devoted my life to basically helping others. And there was always this insatiable pull on me to explore my creative side, basically through entrepreneurship. What would I do with this creative side of myself, the one who enjoyed creating menus for family gatherings and, most recently sourcing vintage jewelry and handbags. I've always had this insatiable desire to do something creative. And after side gigging and trying things on the side while holding down my full-time job, I got laid off June of 2023. And I can't say that I was torn up about it, but I was a little surprised. And it was a wake-up call for me at my age to really think about pursuing some of those creative interests. But I still wasn't ready. And I kept applying, and I worked with a career counselor to really try to land another full-time job, because that's what I always knew to do, was to work. And after rejection, or you're overqualified, or just job opportunities not quite fitting the bill, I had to make what I'm calling a reluctant pivot. Even though my creative side was there and calling me to do something with my entrepreneurial aspirations, I was afraid, like many, and really just thought that I could continue with a full-time job and continue to pursue my interests on the side. Needless to say, that didn't work. And here I am today as an entrepreneur. I work with nonprofits in the consulting space, helping them with grant prep, coaching executive directors, helping them with marketing and communications, and really whatever it is that they need. In addition to that, I do have a business, Ruby Tilda Pearl, where I source and curate vintage jewelry and handbags, and that's my passion, having been given that from my grandmother and her two sisters, who the business is named after. I loved the art of finding a good deal. And I love to be different. I don't want to be the person who looks like everybody else in the room. And vintage wares kind of give you that opportunity to kind of stand out and set yourself apart. So that's what I'm doing these days. But it did not come easy, and I was reluctant to take the leap. So I live in Douglasville, Georgia, suburb of Atlanta, with my husband, who's also reluctant about this pivot and, hoping that somewhere along the way I'm going to go back into the workforce. And you never say never, but for right now, I am full guns blazing at really trying to make this entrepreneurial life work for myself. It certainly isn't easy, but I'm here to do it for my husband and my son. I am the mother of an 11-year-old, and I love him dearly. He's my one and only, and he's a miracle baby. I had him on my 44th birthday. So we share the same October birthday, and we're looking forward to that coming up next month. But what I really want the next chapter of my life to reflect is the strength, the courage, and the tenacity to reinvent myself. And I want to show other people how you can do that. Sometimes with your back against the wall, which mine was back when I got laid off, and having to reluctantly pursue the things that I always knew I wanted to do. And that's kind of where I am today, is taking my gifts and using them in a way that may not be so expected. I think many of us think that we have to have a particular scenario, a situation in order to use our gifts and talents, but you can use them in every aspect that you show up, where you show up. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the vintage business. That's what I try to do with consulting and helping others find their way and be their best self. And that is use my gifts and talents to do that wherever I am. And that's where I am at this point, is a reluctant entrepreneur who's very, very excited about what the future holds.
Oh, I love it. And let me just say something, Miss Melanie. First off, I've already told her she has such a gracious presence. I told her that before we started talking today. A couple things that came out of that first segment for me. The first one is that, in case you didn't do the math, Miss Melanie said she had a baby at 44 and he's now 11. So we know that Miss Melanie is in the 50 plus range. Looking good though. Shut it down, okay? Miss Melanie is doing the thing, but what stood out about that is that so many women, when they reach a certain age, right, they decide that it's too late. They decide that, no, I can't do it. In your situation, you were faced with a back up against the wall situation. And I too, I just started this journey. I left corporate in 2021, but really didn't start walking it out until 2022. And I had a back up against the wall situation too, period. I had to get out of there. It was either kind of me or them type thing. I had to go, Miss Melanie. And I was not expecting to have to do that, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But I find that that's when the power comes, right? Because if Miss Melanie would have still been there, we're not celebrating the layoff because it's still fresh. I mean, that was just last year. We're by no means celebrating that, right? But if they still had that blanket over Miss Melanie, she wouldn't have been pushed out more to say, okay, I'm the entrepreneur. I do want to take off that reluctant part. I think that we need to work to change that adjective and kind of move it out of the way, and we actually start pressing on to really do this thing. So my question for you, I said all that to say this, because this is still new to you, but I know that there are women in your demographic that are connected to me, that feel it's too late, that feel that all of these particular skills they've developed over the years are not valuable, and not really thinking about how to package them. I know it's new for you, but I want you to give them a word of encouragement, even though you're in the process of walking this out and figuring it out. I want Miss Melanie to speak from a pure place to a woman that is over 50, that's saying there's nothing I can do, it's too late.
Right. 50 is very, very young. I am 55 years old, and I think that you're right in that we begin to think, oh, I'm in this last chapter. Oh my gosh, I just don't want to do anything. But I believe the mind is there to be prodded and probed and on this continuous journey to learn something new, do something different, tap into your purpose. Our purpose can change sometimes. It's not always the same thing. Sometimes you get the rug pulled from under you and you think, now what else am I supposed to do? I think this is when that introspective piece comes in. Are you self-aware? Do you enjoy kind of going on journeys within yourself to figure out what could be next for you? Until the nail is in that coffin, you always have time. If you look around, there are women all over the world who started new careers later in life, many of them doing what I'm doing, and that's using their skill set that they've amassed over their corporate career to now consult and help others. You just have to have a certain drive to want to keep giving and keep serving and keep offering. And part of what I believe I'm doing is serving. I'm serving my family. I'm serving the many nonprofits and executive directors that I assist. And I'm serving the women who just want to get up and feel good about what they put on every single day. So I think you have to tap into who you are, the many different layers of yourself. We aren't one dimensional typically. We typically have more layers. And so just tapping into that and believing that 50s, 60s is young. It's all a mindset. If you feel like you're old and it's done, then that's exactly what you're going to get. And that's done. I don't want that because I have an 11-year-old. And so I am constantly striving and trying to show him what it looks like to be resilient, what it looks like to keep fighting and to believe in yourself. No matter what someone tells you, I know that I'm valuable. I know that I can continue on this journey of learning and giving and serving others. So I think it's really just a mindset. And if whatever you think is what you're going to bring to you. So I would say to those women who are believing that it's over, whether it's finding love, I didn't even meet my husband until I was 40 years old. 40. We had a child at 44. We got married at 47. So your fairy tale, your story may not look like everybody else's, but it's yours. Same thing with your career, same thing with your entrepreneurial endeavors. Mine may not look like everybody else's, but it's mine. And so I think you just have to really dig down and build your confidence to step out there. Don't worry about being embarrassed. Don't worry about making mistakes, but show up and give your very best to whatever it is that you're doing.
Oh, I love it. And let me just say, Miss Melanie, that the 40s, they seem to be kind of power packed for you, girl. She said she found love, she got married, and she had a child. So I was just sitting here like, okay, listen, because it's people thinking that, look, I'm at a certain age and I haven't found this yet and I haven't done that. But this is such a powerful story of, look, it happened to me later in life at each shift. I'm starting to figure out there is a little bit better, because I'm pretty sure at 35, you were not thinking that you were going to, of course, ever have that child, and you had him at 44. And that is just, so beautiful. And I love that you shared that with us. I want to go here with you because I was reading around and doing a little bit of research when you wrote into us, and you talked about the quiet influencer. And you said, a quiet influencer is just sometimes not valued.
Yes.
I went through it. Like, I know people see me, and I said often in the podcast, they see me in this light, like, oh, podcast host, she's perked up, she's doing all these things. But for most of my life, up until the past few years now, I was a quiet influencer that was not valued. I want to talk about that space and really the importance of coming out of that kind of mindset of that the quiet influencer. Sometimes it works, but in a lot of cases it don't, right? I want you to talk about it.
That term, let me just say that term is not one that I coined. I happened to be scrolling through LinkedIn one day, and I saw this gentleman, and I can't remember his name. I wish I could give him a shout out right now. But he did a study or book, I can't remember, on this concept of the quiet influencer and how more corporations needed to value these people. And he began to kind of list off all the characteristics and attributes of these people. And lo and behold, I just kind of sat up and I said, well, that's who I've been this whole time. And I didn't realize what to call it. And so sometimes we are the people, those of us who can identify with this, we are the people who don't have a problem being out front. I don't have a problem. I'm a PR major. I could talk to anybody. I can go stand up in a room with 700 people. I don't have a problem doing it, but I didn't have to do it. And so I was more concerned with speaking when it was valuable, offering meaningful insight, making sure that we're thinking through what we're doing, being the thinker in the room, being the strategist in the room. As creative as I am, I'm a gifted problem solver. So I think that what happens sometimes with quiet influencers, people see you as not that shiny object, that person that's always clamoring to be in the front, or they got to have that hot microphone in their hands. And that kind of shiny stuff gets a lot of attention. It gets a lot of attention. And so those of us who are really committed to the job and really trying to make sure that we aren't making mistakes and that we're putting our best foot forward and we're not beating each other up to try to sit in center stage, I think oftentimes do get overlooked. And I think that those people, unfortunately, there are many of us who just find themselves kind of feeling like, well, goodness, all that I did, no one paid attention to it. And so I think that to be, courageous and really stand authentically in who you are, that is why you have to know yourself, know that you're bringing value, and really try to align yourself with an organization who appreciates how you move and how you work. It took me a long time to really understand that concept and what was really going on. Then a girlfriend of mine, said, and I'll use this example really quickly of my son. My son is a basketball player, and I think he's a fantastic basketball player. My husband also played basketball, and they have two very different styles. So my husband was in your face, all about the rah-rah of the game, and he was going to let you know he was there. His presence was known. My son is more of a finesse player. He's going to let you know his presence is there as well, but he's more like me, and he's going to show you with his work. That's a problem for my husband sometimes. He's like, why does he do that? Why isn't he, doing this? Why isn't he more forward, more aggressive, more assertive? And that's the same way sometimes I think, those leaders in corporate see people. They don't see you unless you are that person who's always hosting the event or always trying to put your name on a committee. And so you get these frauds that oftentimes chase that, or they'll go that route just to get seen, when the people who are really doing the work or really have something valuable to bring are sometimes overlooked because they don't necessarily have that personality. So I think that's really what I'm trying to say here, is that I don't know if I would change, but I would want others to be aware that that can happen. If you're not connected to the right space, there are people who won't see you as valuable because you're not knocking people over to be out front.
Oh, that was so good. And I like when you said that, you were doing all these things. You can get up and speak in front of the room of 700 and you can do all these things, but you didn't have to. And it was such a parallel to me because like my strength and power was on the ground with the community building with my team.
Yes,
it wasn't like, oh, Shanasia wants to be, in front of this big project name, or she wants to go and raise her hand for every single project. That just wasn't my methodology. I would get to the end of that career and understand that all of those strides and all that, those long hours and all those things I did to build such a strong code of work ethic, I mean, it was valuable, of course, and I still think that that's one of my, biggest coat of armor because I can get the work done. But the problem with that, it wasn't until I kind of combined the visibility tactics, if you will,
Yes.
with that work ethic to sort of kind of propel myself along.
Mm-hmm.
And in my teachings, and I help women say, okay, look, you don't have to do all this stuff, but there is strategy to the brag, strategy
Yes.
to your own horn, and
Amen.
to a place to where, you know what I'm saying, to where you don't have to be wearing yourself out, putting your hand up. And a lot of us, particularly women of color, have a hard time in playing the politics, and also too breaking through just as in terms of visibility purposes. So I just wanted to make sure I touched on that. And then now the beautiful thing now, Miss Melanie, is that we take away the reluctant. We already talked about that at the beginning of the episode, and we're just saying, entrepreneur. So the beautiful thing about this is that you can massage that thing how you want to now, right? It's not about all these games and raising the hand and doing all that. You can shine light the way you want to.
That's right.
What's good for you and what works for you and your client base. So that's a beautiful place to be. Now, let's go here. I want to talk a little bit more about the jewelry business because it did pique my interest. You said that it was named after two relatives or whatever. I do want you to talk briefly about them because they had to be impactful enough for you to name a business after them. So when I hear that connection and I hear a connection to women in the family, strong pillars, I have to dig more because this is the Her Voice Shines podcast, and we want to make sure that we shine some light on those beautiful women.
Yeah, I was raised by matriarchs. And for some people, that can be tough because you learn to be tough from them. You learn strength because it's demonstrated in front of you, every day. You learn how to persevere. You learn so much when you are raised in a home. I wasn't raised with my father. I had a relationship with my father, rest in peace. Both of my parents are now deceased. But I was raised by my mother and her mother. And my grandmother was the youngest of two. She had four siblings total, but she was the youngest girl. And every Saturday, I had the pleasure of spending time with her and my two aunts, Matilda and Pearl. And each Saturday, they take us on all kinds of adventures, whether it was thrifting, antique shopping, going down to the farmer's market, how to make sweet potato pie. They were excellent cooks. They were Renaissance women. They made their own wine. Honey, I even saw them one night, had to wring a chicken's neck. Now I'm getting all into my country business at this point. But I said all that to say that they taught me so much. And so did my mother, my beautiful mother, who worked two jobs to take care of my sister and I. But I spent a lot of time in my younger years with my grandmother until she passed away about a month before I graduated from high school. So when I thought about how I would kind of honor them, this business kind of came to me as a way to connect the past to present day and also to the future, like what is possible, sustainability by, falling in love with pre-loved items or vintage items that are old and not discarding them. Going back and thinking about some of those experiences that I had as a young child and how much they've helped shaped kind of who I am today. So protecting that past in order to, really chart a new future for myself, and for others. So when I think about Ruby, Tilda, and Pearl, that's the name of the business. They're all over that business in terms of the excellence that I try to present in what I do, by the items that I source. I kind of am known for being savvy in how I source, but always trying to find stylish and sophisticated items that really span generations. I have young women who like to buy from me, and I have women my age and older who also like to buy from me. So, and I didn't just start the business for the aspect of selling. Selling is almost in the background. It's really trying to show women how to show up in the world. And I'm having an event on September 14th where we're going to have a little vintage and vino. And I'm looking forward to networking with those folks that show up that day. And not just, it's not all about the sales. The sales, of course, help pay the bills, but it's really about showing people how you can show up and be your authentic self. You don't have to be like anyone else but you. And that's one thing I love about vintage wares. And that's what my grandmother and her two sisters taught me, was that, you don't have to discard things. You don't have to discard them. You can take them and you can refurbish them and you can love on them, and they will continue to give over time.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Milne. I had to have it because I'm a grandparent's kid, and I had a rich connection with several great aunts and uncles. And then, when I look back or whatever, it really was those foundational building blocks. It taught me so much about how to treat people, how to build community, how to be resourceful. So when I hear a story, I have to peek in and bring it in to let us know that those things are so important. They mean
so important.
Oh my gosh, they mean so much. And when you were talking about them, I actually got a little bit of chills because I know and I could hear the resourcefulness. I could hear the pride. And it just makes me just that much more prideful myself. Now, I want to make sure that we, of course, give them the information about the jewelry. If there's somewhere they can find that or connect around that. And then also kind of segue again into the space about you helping with communications for nonprofits. I want to make sure that if people need those services, they understand that component too, as well as where to find out about those services as well.
Absolutely. So if you just follow Ruby_Pearl on Instagram and Facebook, you can find all about the business and what we have going on. We typically present items via live streaming on Instagram, on an app called Whatnot, and occasionally on Facebook. We are building out our website. But right now you could typically find them via live stream. In terms of the nonprofit consulting, it's interesting because I worked for a very large nonprofit, and that nonprofit still had its struggles and its challenges, as any organization does. But what I found through that journey was many small and mid-sized nonprofits, they really, really need help. Many of them are driven by the cause. They're driven by some need to do better or fix this problem and, attack kind of the social ills that have befallen upon us. And they sometimes don't have all the answers. And so in preparing for grants, what should you be looking out for? How do you build your story and tell your story of impact? How have you been impacting the communities or the people that you serve? How do you connect with donors? Why should a donor want to give to you over the many, many millions of other nonprofits that are out there? So a lot of it is just going back to basics. Many executive directors of those leaders who are running young nonprofits in particular, it takes a long time to get the grooming necessary and the confidence to be able to go after large donors and ask them for money. But that is what you do. You ask for money to support your cause. A nonprofit is really no different than a business, except the funding model is different. You are funded differently. You are funded by grants. You are funded by donations, but you still have to have an extremely savvy business mindset. And sometimes I think those who start nonprofits, they get into it because they saw something growing up. I was a foster child and I want to be here for foster children, or, my mom or my aunt may have been a victim of domestic violence, and I really want to start a nonprofit where I can help other women avoid those situations. Or it may be that, I grew up poor and I didn't have the clothing that I needed to feel seen and to feel valuable. So those are the things that drive people into starting a nonprofit. But once you get there, what's next? You have to do certain things and put certain um, pillars, and your foundation must be strong in order to really grow and sustain. And that's just the whole point, is sustainability. You want to be able to sustain your nonprofit because you, like me, like any business owner, we're building legacies. You're not just doing this for fun. You're not doing it for sport. So there are things that have to be in place. So I believe with over 10 years of nonprofit experience and even more years of corporate experience, can certainly help nonprofits who are trying to find their way. They need strategy. They need a website cleaned up or even created. They have no idea where to start in terms of campaigns and all those types of things. So I have a wealth of knowledge that I offer. I can certainly come in and help anyone if it's just a training they need, if it's something more integral where they need someone to kind of get more intimate with their organization. I work hand in hand with many nonprofit leaders of some of these organizations, just as their right hand, just as an impartial person outside of their board that can kind of help them navigate certain situations and help them prepare for the landscape that might be changing, that could affect what it is they do, how they raise money, or even the cause that they're trying to champion. And you can just contact me directly through the strategy suite. I have a company that's set up where I just deal with that through that, thestrategysuite.com. Reach out to me there, and I can go from there in trying to see if we're a good fit and how I may be able to assist.
Okay, so you guys make sure you have that noted as a strategy suite, and I absolutely love it because I feel like we can talk a whole another hour about the impact and the storytelling. And one of the things I teach, is that powerful storytelling. Yes. And the other part is that I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna get a nonprofit." Did y'all hear Miss Melanie say it's just like a business, but it's just Absolutely. A different funding model? Like I hear that all the time. I'm just gonna get a nonprofit. I'm like, well, maybe that still works too. So. Yes. To hear you say that, and it really is just the funding behind it, but all those components that you need, being able to go out and talk about getting money, which is kind of the marketing aspect of it, having a website, making sure things are ran properly operationally. It is still a business essentially, yes. But of course, as she said, it's that funding model that is different. Now, Miss Melanie, this is the part in our show we're cue to you for your final thoughts. I tell my guests, if people see nothing else but this, we want to make sure that we give Ms. Melanie the opportunity to give us some final parting words and something that really captures the essence of Ms. Melanie.
I think the thing I'd like to leave with any listener, viewer today is to be open to change. It's nothing wrong with knowing who you are. And being solid on that, being very self-aware of who you are, but please be open to change. I think that many of us are steadfast and determined to, I'm going to be me. This is who I am. And, I'm just keeping it 100. Okay. Learn to listen to others, be open to feedback, and be open to doing the work on yourself, so that you can run that nonprofit, so that you can run that business, so that you can be a strong influence on your family, if that is what you've chosen to do, which is the biggest job in the world to me, is raising children and being that partner to that person that you care about, or being that daughter, that sister, that niece. You still want to be open. And so I would say that that's the one thing that I think has allowed me to be resilient and to still persevere and pursue the things that I'm doing right now, and that is being open to change and being open to listening and being open to working on myself for the rest of my days.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ms. Melanie, for bringing your grace, your poise, your wisdom, and everything that you've given us today in this episode. What a fabulous episode. I have to thank you really, truly from my heart for your time. To all our listeners and viewers that are out here on the Her Voice Shines podcast, I never leave this place without telling you that I love you. And to always remember to let your voice shine, because transformative things happen when you do. And we'll be back really in no time with another amazing woman on the Her Voice Shines podcast. And we're out for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.